Hey everyone, Cooper here, host of the fine podcast you're listening to. I just want to let you know that the episode you clicked on has a format that is very heavily inspired by a podcast called The Bookening. To be clear, our thoughts and opinions in this episode are our own, but the format is very similar to this podcast. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give credit where it is due. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Coming up next, Booking It reads, There and Back Again. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Booking It. I'm, of course, your humble and eloquent host, Mr. Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today are two of my good friends, Mr. Isaiah Retsky.
Hello.
And Mr. Tanner Lewis.
Howdy.
I titled this episode There and Back Again because it's a pun, you see. Because at our very first episodes 1 and 2, we talked about The Hobbit. And of course, as any Tolkien nerd knows, There and Back Again is the title of The Hobbit in the world of Lord of the Rings. When Bilbo writes his memoir, it's called There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale. So, as a pun, since we're talking about The Hobbit again, I called it There and Back Again because it's like the pun, you know? It's very fun. I'm very clever, and I've been waiting to do this episode basically ever since I came up with the schedule. So,
Nice.
I don't know. I'm excited. How about you guys? You excited?
I'm excited to redo the episodes that sucked because they were our first ones and they were
Yes.
terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go back and listen to those ever
Please
again.
don't.
Please
ever.
don't. But
basically, it's just Matthew and Cooper going between Gandalf and Dumbledore. I have no clue why we
yeah,
kept that, but
because it was the best part of the episode, honestly.
most entertaining.
Yes. And ever since then, we always want to do a Gandalf versus Dumbledore debate. It will happen eventually. I assure it. But we're here. We're talking about The Hobbit.
After all of us are versed,
Yes.
including me.
We're talking about The Hobbit again, and really, we're just going to talk kind of generally about The Hobbit. I'm not going to go as specific as last time, and I actually have my notes from our last episodes that we did on The Hobbit, our very first ones, and we can ask some of the questions that I asked back then as well. And it's like 3 pages of notes, so we won't do all of them, obviously, but anyway.
And if you guys are wondering why we reread it, it's because we had to do for school, so that's why it was on the
Yes.
schedule.
Yeah, and we all agreed to do it because we hated our first episodes so
Yeah.
much. So,
We needed
and
redemption.
Matthew's not here either. So, you know, the one Hobbit hater is gone. So,
True.
is there anything else? Oh yeah, Matthew's not here. He's busy. We're all busy actually. We all got back from our respective ski trips this week or last week.
Snowboarding.
Yes,
skiing.
Isaiah was snowboarding. Tanner was first time skiing, and I was skiing and
Snowboarding.
trying. Oh really, Tanner, you boarding?
Hey.
Yeah, I was boarding.
First time? Let me
Yep,
guess, very
I'm hip.
painful?
Actually, no. I had one of the guys that had been skiing for 20 years tell me that he wasn't able to do the stuff that I was doing when I was, like, I feel like I'm
Same.
boasting now. I'm
Third
stopping.
time I ever went
feel like-
snowboarding, I went on a black diamond, so...
Yeah, I feel like Isaiah and Tanner, they're like, you know, snowboarding prodigies. So we went with some family friends, and 4 of us, not including me, tried to do snowboarding. Okay,
Oof.
so it was my family friend's dad, one of his sons, and then my 2 younger sisters, and none of them made it past the first day. After the half-day mark, my younger sister Caroline was done. She was like, "I'm just done. I'm tired of falling. I'm tired, blah blah blah." So she went and turned in her snowboard.
Oh, it hurts.
Then later in that day, my friend Brady broke his arm snowboarding. My youngest sister Sarah Jane got scared of that and didn't want to snowboard anymore. And then Brady's dad, Mr. Greg, decided just to stay home and help him out the rest of the trip
Dang.
and, you know, be his guardian. So nobody made it past the first day. But
Dang.
I didn't break my leg this time, so that's a success.
That works.
Because if you go back and listen to one of our first screening episodes, it was recorded right before I broke my leg on a ski trip. But
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. But if you wanted to, you could.
I'll just say this: snowboarding is really fun, but really hard to learn. But once you learn
Yeah,
it, it's
that's what I've heard.
easier.
That's what
Like
I've heard.
easier. Like skiing is easy to learn, but hard to get like really good at. And snowboarding is the exact opposite of that.
Yep.
And it probably helps that I did skateboarding and stuff, but
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
All right, well, let's talk about The Hobbit, guys. This was this is probably my 5th or 6th time reading all the way through. I'm sure Tanner's around there too. Isaiah, is this like your 3rd or 4th
Number
time?
7.
yeah, third or fourth.
Just
something like that.
Just
3rd
to
or
put it
4th,
up there.
Yeah. So, both you guys, what'd you think about it this time through?
Same as before. It's a good book, good storyline, much more entertaining than Lord of the Rings because it doesn't drag
Yes.
on and on. Thankfully.
Yeah, same. I am always in awe of Tolkien and how well he can write a story when he wants to. And yeah, every time I go through it, I notice something different, and I like it even more because I noticed it different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, same here. It just gets better as I every time I read it. Pretty much, I always enjoy it. Like Tanner said, I guess I keep recognizing new things, and I guess, being in awe of Tolkien. And like Isaiah said, it's a lot more fun to read than Lord of the Rings, even though I do love Lord of the Rings as well.
Nerd.
So there's that. No, nerd. I like good books, Isaiah. That's what I'll say to that.
Dang.
But I am reading the Silmarillion right now, so I guess I really
Nerd.
can't say anything about that. Yeah. Let's see. Next question. What do you guys think about Tolkien's style? Do you guys like his style? What's cool about the style? His writing style.
I love how many adjectives he uses. He's very much a fan of adjectives and adverbs. Sometimes to the point of it's too much. But like there's just so many good analogies that he puts in there. Sometimes his rhyming will annoy you though.
100%.
Like after a couple of like the Misty Mountains that the dwarves were singing in An Unexpected Party was amazing, and then after that it's just downhill. Every time he throws in another one, it just kind of wears down on you.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean,
I will say all of the rhyming and poetry that he does in the Silmarillion and all of his other books are like perfect every time. I love them.
Yeah, like if Tolkien could cut down on the poetry by about 80%, it'd be a much better book. You know, it's like at the very end, Thorin says something like, you know, if everyone valued hoarded gold above, or no, not if everyone valued food and cheer above hoarded gold, this world would be a merrier place. Well, I would say to Tolkien, if you valued word and story over poetry, this book would be a merrier book. That's what I would say to him, you know. But anyway, yeah, I agree. I think Tolkien does. Well, I think one of my favorite descriptions of his is when the dwarves are getting taken by the goblins in the Misty Mountains, and he has like a really great. He uses some very descriptive verbs and it's very good adjectives, and it's very realistic and stuff. But Isaiah, what about you?
I don't know. Besides what you guys said, I really don't see anything else besides him being really good at describing and, yeah, like you said, using adjectives to help you like picture it in your mind what's happening, and it's like you're actually there.
Yeah, but in Lord of the Rings, obviously he goes, it's just too much. It's too dense.
Yeah,
like it's
100%.
It's too much, and
I literally fell asleep reading it, and I'm not kidding. Like I actually fell asleep.
Here's the thing, Isaiah. Like you could do that with any book, though. Okay.
At 6 o'clock.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. But what was I gonna say? Oh yes, another thing that I really love about The Hobbit, it's really my favorite thing about The Hobbit, is just the grandfather to grandkid sitting by the fire storytelling way in which it's told. Like you can tell, like even in his descriptions, which I think is why Hobbit is better than Lord of the Rings. It's more fairy tale-ish. It's more swashbuckling. It's more just like I said, sitting by the fire telling a story, and it's just Tolkien like describing it to the reader, right? But it's like I need to describe hobbits now, where and this is what Bilbo thought, and it's really just conversational. It's very nonchalant almost, but it's very well done, and he keeps it up throughout the whole book, and it's just this very warm, inviting storytelling vibe from the opening lines of "In the hole and ground there lived a hobbit" to the very end. So yep. Next, let's talk about a little bit more the characters. Do you guys have a favorite character? I mean, obviously, I think
Gollum. No, I'm kidding.
Gollum. Yeah, I mean he's a fun character. especially in Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
I'm gonna go Gandalf, just an absolute beast, and very poetical, and has a lot of good lines that I really want to hang up around my
Yeah,
room.
honestly, me and Tanner could probably plaster our rooms with lines from Gandalf.
You probably could.
Yeah, like, and even Isaiah could. Like, they're just that good. You could do it.
Sure.
They're I could quote some for you right now that you could put up on your wall.
Go ahead.
But Gandalf, yeah, like Tanner said, he's just the best because he is the best. He's not only the best wizard in literature. Oh well,
Boo.
yeah, the best. Yeah, he is. He is.
Boo.
I'm sorry, he is. He also He's very witty. Like the first introduction to Gandalf of anything is good morning. What do you mean by good morning? Do you mean it's a morning to be good on, or a good morning whether I want it to be or not, or a morning to all of that kind of stuff? And it's very witty and tongue in cheek. And I want to say even Matthew admitted this, and I think it was Two Towers Part 1, where he admitted that Gandalf was pretty awesome, even though he didn't like him as much as Dumbledore. Like, you just can't help but like this guy because he's witty and smart and also like a great mentor. So, unlike Dumbledore. Anyway,
Wow.
this will not turn into a Dumbledore versus Gandalf episode. I am sorry, it won't. But there's that. Every time we talk about Tolkien on the podcast, though, we do have to like reference character development. Like, did it strike you at all in this book, like the subpar character development, or were you bothered by it? Did you notice it at all? What are your thoughts on like the characters and the depth of the characters and character development?
We always have to go back to the example of the dwarves. It's just we have 14 people in in Thorin's company.
Yeah.
14 people in Thorin's company, 13 of which are dwarves. And it is extremely hard to name 2 characteristics of those dwarves.
So true.
Yeah.
And you're with them the entire book.
Yeah.
And yet, you can't name a whole lot of things that they've done.
It really is like, Balin is old and likes Bilbo. Thorin is pompous and talks a lot. Philly and Killy are young. Bomber is fat. Like, that's really the amount of character that we get.
True.
I don't know though. Does it bother you at all, Isaiah, at all, or is it just part of?
I mean, I would have liked it if there was a bit more character development for them, but I think since they weren't really like the main focus of the book, or I mean, for some of them like Thorn and so that they probably should have done more, or not they, should have done more. Tolkien.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it was still good the way it was.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think it gets in the way too much at all. Honestly, since it is a kid's book, it's a fairy tale, I think that we can ding him less for it in The Hobbit and more so in Lord of the Rings.
I still don't know how this is considered a fairy tale, but...
Yeah, well, I think it's more of a fairy tale and it's lighthearted, and it's more of a children's fable.
Lighthearted. Dragon conquers, the Lonely Mountain, drives the dwarfs out of their homeland. Totally fairy tale childish.
It's like Peter Jackson is like trying to make a kids movie and is like, you know what kids love? A bunch of orc blood and orc heads getting chopped off.
Honestly.
But since it's because it's a fairy tale, that the development may be less refined, because who can write 12 dwarves and have them all be different personalities and all be lively, fleshed out characters, right?
Knowing from how Tolkien wrote in Lord of the Rings, he easily could have done that. Just it wouldn't have been one book.
Right? Yeah. Right. You can't in a book, as long as The Hobbit, flesh out these dwarves. They're really just supposed to be there for, like, when Tolkien lists them all off. It's just for the delight of the kids, right? It's like, oh, there are 12 dwarves. That's fun. And it's not these are well drawn characters. And I think the main characters, they do develop. I mean, Gandalf is a constant, but you don't need to see Gandalf change at all, because he's just awesome throughout the entire thing. But Bilbo changes. Like, he goes from, I mean, he is the stereotypical hero's journey. Goes from the guy who doesn't want to go on an adventure and rejects the call to the guy at the very end, changed by the adventure, and is now he lost his reputation, as it says at the end, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's enough character change in the main characters, and Thorin as well at the very end. And I think we can talk about it now, I guess. I think that uh, I think that Tolkien could have done more in The Hobbit to develop Thorin, especially.
Mm-hmm.
In the movies, I think you have to give Peter Jackson at least some credit for trying to, number one, develop 12 dwarves over 3 movies into likable, fleshed out characters.
Hey,
and
but he made a
also
200 and something page book into 3 movies, or almost 300 page book. So
yeah, it's
he added,
And he added the dwarf elf love story. I still can't get over that. It frustrates me. It frustrates me a lot.
You just go listen to our episodes on The Hobbit on the screening if you want to
Maybe
hear us
don't.
talk about those
Oh,
movies.
on the screening, yes.
Or
okay.
don't. But yeah, or don't. But I want to make space for the problems that he encountered when making the adaptation. Yes, he failed miserably in most ways, but I think one way he didn't fail, at least seemingly, was Thorin's arc. Like, going from, he was already in the beginning a leader, a guy who you would want to follow, and then he becomes corrupted by gold, but then at the end he is, quote-unquote, redeemed, right? And I think The Hobbit never really, first of all, he's not as likable in the book as he is in the movie, really, because he's not played by a good actor, and he's not like, he's written as pompous, he's written as, not really the leader that he is in the movies, and then at the very, you like him more and more as you go along, I guess, but at the very end, when he basically forgives Bilbo, and comes to his senses, it's like, one paragraph of him doing that and stuff like that. And it's like, you wish you could have spent more time with this guy and getting him fleshed out. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree. Not much else to say over that.
Yeah. Do you guys, do you guys track the development of Bilbo throughout the novel? Like, is it well done as far as character development goes?
Repeat the question again.
Do you guys track Bilbo over the course of the novel? Like, is he obvious? Is his arc well drawn? Is he consistently moving from one stage of his development to another?
I would say so. I mean, there's a few drag parts, like, where he just, like, it's kind of that, like, Tookish part of him that just kind of, like, jumps out, and I kind of like that Tolkien used that as his, quote-unquote excuse to be able to, like, have Bilbo be like, oh, I wish I could be at my Hobbit hole right now. And then this Tookish part of him jumped in, and then he's like, I'm going to go kill all of these spiders and free my friends.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a good excuse, and I think that's, like, it's consistently moving up. There's just a few drops where he's like, oh, but I wish I could be in my warm, comfortable Hobbit hole.
I think towards the end it's better because he's just tired of the whole thing. He's like, I just want to go home now. I've done everything I can for you. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have any talk a little bit more, and then I'll read some of these questions that I have from my old notes. Do you guys have a favorite chapter or favorite moment from The Hobbit you guys always like to read?
Favorite chapter, The Riddles in the Dark, or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great chapter. With
the riddles from Gollum.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is either it's going to be an unexpected party. Like, that's a little bit of an unpopular one, but it is. And then my second would probably be either Barrels Out of Bond or Flies and Spiders. Those two are just, like, so intermingled. Yeah. Like, I love them too much to be able to decide.
Yeah, I'm with Isaiah. I think Riddles in the Dark is one of my favorites, but I think my total favorite is Inside Information. It's just a really fun scene between Bilbo and Smaug, and Tolkien has a really fun dialogue with the reader, where he's like, "This is what you do when you're with a dragon," or "This is, like you want to flatter him, you want to riddle with him, right?" And it's exactly. And then there's like this one line where Bilbo was like riddling with him, and he goes, "Bilbo was not unlearned in dragon lore," and it's just this fun chapter of Bilbo's. Yeah, and then Bilbo's just riddling with him, and I am Barrel Rider and Luck Wearer, and things like that, and it's just really fun. So, but yeah, Flies and the Spider is a fun chapter, and obviously Riddles in the Dark. I mean, I remember stumping Matthew before he read The Hobbit on a couple of those riddles, and Tolkien is just a really good suspense and dark writer. as well. Like those chapters in Moria are obviously the best in Lord of the Rings. Probably the best part of Lord of the Rings is in Moria. And then obviously the great part in this book is the goblin tunnels and the darkness that you feel in there and the claustrophobia, and it's really fun. So, yep. Oh, okay, one more question, and then we'll dive into these other questions that I had from our original episodes. Do you guys have any, like, favorite lines from The Hobbit? I know Tanner might have some. I don't know if you have any, Isaiah.
I do not know.
Yeah. Tanner?
Mine would be, I came out of the end of a bag, but over me no bag ever went.
That was pretty fun.
Something like that.
That was from
Inside Information. I'm gonna find it exactly. It's one of my favorite. Here, I'm coming up with it. You guys talk.
I think one of mine is actually one of the lines that Thorin says at the end. So this is Bilbo talking with Thorin. It says, Bilbo knelt on one knee filled with sorrow. Farewell, King out of the mountain, he said. This is a bitter adventure, if it must end so. Not a mountain of gold can amend it. Yet I am glad that I have shared in your perils. That has been more than any Baggins deserves. No, said Thorin. There is more in you of good than you know, child of the kindly West. Some courage and some wisdom, blended in measure. If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. But sad or merry, I must leave it now. Farewell. That's a pretty good... Even though, like I said earlier, I wish Tolkien had done more with Thorin in the earlier parts of the novel, this scene between him and Bilbo, it really is pretty great. Like, it's a great scene of them reconciling, and also Thorin really giving some, good wisdom. Like, hey, the moral of this story is don't value gold above everything else, right? And then he says, but sad or merry, I must leave it now, which is a pretty great line. It's like I wish I could have done more in my life, but it's a pretty sad ending, but it's also one of the best endings, I think, for a character in a story. You got it, Tanner?
Yeah, I got it. So I'm just going to read his full quote. I am he that buries his friends alive and drowns them and draws them alive again from the water. I came from the end of a bag, but no bag went over me. Yeah, I got it right.
And then obviously, I think another one of my favorites is from the Good Morning. Good morning, said Bilbo, and he meant it. The sun was shining and the grass was very green. But Gandalf looked at him from under his long, bushy eyebrows that stuck out further than the brim of his shady hat. What do you mean, he said. Do you wish me a good morning, or mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not, or that you feel good on this morning, or that it is a morning to be good on? And then Bilbo's like, it's all of them at once, I suppose. Like, that dialogue between Bilbo and Gandalf is pretty fun. And then, obviously, the opening paragraph, which I will recite from memory, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. That might be the best opening paragraph in literature.
Remember whenever I said that you're a nerd? That kind of just proved it.
Fine, fine.
Just saying. I'm kidding. You're a Tolkien nerd. How about that?
Here's my absolute favorite thing from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So it's a bit of a big one. But as they sang, the Hobbit felt the love of beautiful things made by hands and by cunning and by magic moving through him, a fierce and a jealous love, the desire of the hearts of the dwarves. Then something tookish woke up inside of him, and he wished to go and see the great mountains, and hear the pine trees and the waterfalls, and explore the caves, and wear a sword instead of a walking stick. He looked out of the window. The stars were out in a dark sky above the trees. He thought of the jewels of the dwarves shining in dark caverns. Suddenly, in the wood beyond the water, a flame leapt up, probably somebody lighting a wood fire, and he thought of plundering dragons settling on his quiet hill and kindling it all to flames. He shuddered, and very quickly he was playing Mr. Baggins of Bag End, Underhill again.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I always like that when I read it as well. All right, let's ask some of these questions. So, guys, what was I going to ask? Is the first chapter too boring for you guys, or does it explain all that happened? Question mark.
You had to say question mark?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Answer.
I don't honestly remember right now.
Yeah.
I read this like 3 weeks ago, and I do not remember if the first chapter was too boring.
It's probably a good sign.
It wasn't boring. It entertains me. It entertains me every time.
All right.
There's enough to keep you. Unlike a long expected party, it's like there's something to keep you moving every time.
And honestly, it's a good scene in the movie too. The first scene. the party scene. So
Yeah,
that's why it's that. Do you like that every chapter is a short story?
of course.
It keeps you entertained.
Yeah, I just love how like it feels like I finish a chapter and then I can stop for the night and go to sleep and not need to read anything
Yeah.
else. Like I could just pick up at a random chapter in The Hobbit, pick it up, read it, and then go to bed and be like, okay, I read a decent sized book today.
It's
Like,
this is what TV should be. It has a end game in mind, and yet there are some fun adventures along the way. It's kind of what the first season of Mandalorian or should have been. It's what the Mandalorian should be in its structure. This is why I don't like a lot of TV shows. Anyway, it's just it has a bunch of stories along the side. But it has an end game in mind. That's what I really like about it.
unlike Lost in Space, I'm watching that on Netflix right now. Let me just tell you, I like every episode. I get to the end, and every episode they come up with a way to get off of the planet, and every episode it doesn't work.
Yeah. All right, guys. Did Tolkien create darkness in a cave well? Is this the epitome of dark in literature?
Wait, what?
That's
Wanna
what I said.
repeat that
This is when we're talking about apparently riddles in the dark. That chapter. Did Tolkien create darkness in a cave well? Is this the epitome of dark in literature?
I honestly have no clue how to answer that question.
We kind of talked about it. You liked the riddles in the dark, and we talked about how Tolkien is pretty good at like drawing a cave or creating a scene that's like, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about now.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
All right, guys. Besides Thorin, which dwarf has a defining characteristic?
Honestly, I'm trying to remember all the dwarfs' names besides Feely and Keely.
I'd say Balin. He's old and wise. Like he has, like,
Yeah.
he's just like the wise
Yeah.
dwarf. He's like what dwarves should be, like in non-Tolkien books. Like he's just a dwarf.
Yeah, he's probably the most well drawn of all the other dwarves.
Old and well defined.
Yes. Do you like that Bilbo revealed the ring in the book a bit more than in the movie?
Because it was how Tolkien wrote it.
Yeah, I think the book. I think the question is asking like in this book, Bilbo like reveals that he has a magic ring and tells them that he's gonna use it and things like that. Do you guys like that he revealed it a bit more than he did in the movie?
Yeah, because it's how Tolkien meant it to be.
Yeah.
Like I'm a strict Tolkien nerd. Yeah, it's just
All right, guys. Here's a good question.
like that is the way it should. That's the way it should be.
Do you like how Tolkien builds up Bilbo until he almost becomes more credible than the dwarves?
Yes. Who wouldn't? He's like he just turns into a beast. Like that's all he
Here's the
does.
thing. At the very end, though, it becomes a little bit obnoxious because honestly, after Barrel's out of Bond, Bilbo just becomes like the leader of the company, and Tolkien acknowledges this in the book as well. And at the very end, they're like whining and throwing their, like they're kneeling before Bilbo, like, "Help us, Master Bilbo, give us a plan." Like I don't all the way buy that. I don't all the way buy it at all. I like how he becomes more and more like the hero of the company, but that's a bit too much for me. So that. Is Smaug probably the best literary dragon?
Of course.
I'm trying to think of other
He's
ones
pretty
right
good.
now.
Yeah. No dragon from Harry Potter
Actually,
compares.
No, there's not. I have to pull it up. It's another Tolkien book.
Actually, no, I'd have to say Smaug is because he talks. So
Yes, yeah, exactly. and he like
No.
he's good. He's a pretty fun dragon when
And
we
he's,
hear
like,
him
really
talk.
In the Silmarillion, there is a better dragon. There is a dragon that literally took out like an entire legion of elves. Like
they just gotta like all that dragon's gotta any dragon's gotta do to do that is just like blow fire on them and they all die.
Yeah.
no, but like literally like as straight after coming out of Morgoth's palace in Mordor. Like it's just legit.
Interesting. Didn't this dragon though take out that whole city there or whatever?
Smaug, yeah, he kind of did.
Yeah, and a full mountain full of dwarfs.
He can't. Smaug is the chiefest and greatest of calamities, according to Bilbo. All right, I got one more question for my old thing for you guys, and we'll wrap up here. So Bard the Bowman in the book. Do you like him
What a
better in the
man.
movie or the book?
Book.
Like
He's more respectable in the
Mhm.
book.
hey, explain?
Like in the movie, he's just this like he's mistrusting and feels a little bit off. That's all I have. Like he's just I don't know. It feels like you're not supposed to trust him until he finally kills the dragon, and then once he gets up to the dwarves up at the mountain, he definitely does not respond how he did in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like he if I'm remembering correctly, I haven't seen it for a few months, but he basically just kind of like says, "Give us your gold, or we will burn you out."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that is not what he said
I
in
want
The
to kind of
Hobbit.
defend the movie Bard. Number one, he's played by Luke Evans, who is an absolute man. But also, I think he
Okay,
stays
I
true
agree.
to the book. Like in the book, Bard is described as being grim but true, and I think to a certain degree, Bard is that in the book or in the movie. I'm sorry. And then also at the very end in the book, you're right. It makes more sense, his argument for the gold, but I think he still is kind of played true in the movie. But I do like him better in the book. He seems more respectable and honorable.
Yeah.
So. Anything to add, Isaiah, on that?
No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any last thoughts on The Hobbit, yo, before we do some donor shout-outs?
Did you just say Hobbit, yo?
Yeah, I did say Hobbit, yo. I don't know why.
Why? Okay.
How many? Yeah, it is. I know it is. How many dwarves out of 12 would you give The Hobbit, Isaiah?
I'll give it like a good 10.
10. Solid. Tanner, about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go for like an 11. 11 or 10.
I'll go with 10 or 11. Definitely one of my favorite books of all time, but it's just not perfect, so I can't give it 12. But yeah, very high up there. All right, guys, I'll give you a donor, and then you guys have to say which dwarf you think they are. So we're going with the obvious one. Just open up to the beginning or whatever. Tanner could probably name them all off his head, but
I'm gonna try.
Oh yeah, Tanner, where would someone go if they want a donor shout out?
They would go to patreon.com/bookinit and subscribe to any of our $5 and up tiers.
That's correct. Oh, also, I should probably mention in terms of money, we reached our patron goal, and we're going to read the Green Ember, thanks to Isaiah's sister, Becky.
Yep.
Isaiah, did you add her on? I need to add Becky onto this.
Probably should, yeah.
But so we're probably not going to have enough time to do it this semester. So it'll probably have to be next semester, but it will happen.
Yeah.
Matthew is once again unhappy about it, but we'll do it.
Yeah. In his words, we're going to be reading a stupid bunny book.
Yeah, if any of you remember the bunny incident that
yes,
wrecked the entire world.
Yeah, and if all our patrons know what Tanner's talking about, because our $10 and above patrons do at least. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start off with some donors. Isaiah, Nana.
So you said we got to do a dwarf, right?
Yes.
All right, we're just going with Ori.
Okay, and Tanner, Pimpapi, and Wayla.
Keely.
Okay, Isaiah, your grandparents, Mike and Sylvia.
Philly. Philly, however you say the guy's name.
Yeah. Tanner, Mr. and Mrs. Ryatsky, Isaiah's parents, Mr. Mike and Miss Laura.
Ballin.
All right, Isaiah, your Uncle Sebi.
Biffer.
Ooh, Biffer. I like him in the movie. He's a good Biffer.
Dude, I don't remember him, so.
Yeah, I don't honestly don't know either. And then Tanner, Isaiah's aunt and uncle, Jenny and Sam.
It seems only appropriate to say Bofer.
Isaiah, your cousin Moses.
Bomber.
Okay. Not targeted at all. Tanner, Zara.
Let's go with, ooh, this is getting hard now.
I know, right? I'm trying to remember all the ones we did.
I refuse to look at it. I need to know this.
Could just look it up.
I'm looking at it now. It feels like cheating though.
I've been
Forget
doing
about
that
like
from the beginning.
Oin and Gloin. And,
oh yeah, Oin.
You know, Dory, Ori,
Oin.
Nori.
Yeah, I knew there was a G that I was missing. Let's go with Gloin.
All right. Isaiah, Anna.
Dory.
Dory. Okay. Tanner, Emily.
Oin.
Okay, and then last but not least, Isaiah, your sister Becky.
Dwallin.
Alright guys, thank you so much for donating to all of our patrons, and if you want to donate, go to the link that Tanner said, it's in the description. We'd really appreciate your help, and obviously make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review, because we are that good at podcasting, and we'll see you next time with, I think it's Out of the Silent Planet. I think it's like the C.S. Lewis Space Trilogy.
Oh, yes.
Which it'll be, at the very least, interesting to talk about.
Tanner.
And me and Tanner could probably go on for a long time about that as well. But until then...
Keep on booking it.